Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Flash Forward. This is the Marvel and DC retrospective podcast, and this show is where I talk about every single issue of The Flash Volume 2 in order. Today we're going to be covering issues 43 to 54. We're doing a couple more issues than usual because issue 55 is a tie-in to War of the Gods, which is a Wonder Woman event. And Annual 4 comes up right after issue 54 and is a tie-in to the Armageddon event. So we're going to be doing those two events back to back, which is going to be fun because they take place at the same time. But yeah, let's without further ado, let's get straight into this. We're starting with issue 43, written by William Meslolos, with art by Greg LaRocque and Jose Marzan, as usual. This is continuing on from the last issue, which set up that Kilgore has been taking over people's minds with little robotic, worm-like creatures. And so now we're going to see how that progresses. We've just discovered this revelation, or at least Wally has. So it starts where the last issue left off, where this weird worm thing was found on East's neck, controlling him. So Wally smashes it with a hammer, and he knows right away that it's Kilgore. And so he decides that he and Linda need to work together in order to stop Kilgore and figure out where Kilgore is, because it's obvious that he's probably operating from somewhere. Meanwhile, Mason is watching TV, and Wally's new accountant, Benjamin Harrison Hughes, shows up. He's the one that's currently helping Wally with his debt, and he invites him in and asks him if he wants any lunch. And while they're talking to each other, a guy on the TV screen turns out to be Kilgore, who is basically announcing the fact that he's taken over the world again, just like he did last time. And so Mason kind of just says Wally's gonna handle this. Let's not worry about it. Let's just have something to eat. And Benjamin's just like, what? Didn't you hear what he said on the TV screen? So Linda asks Wally who Kilgore is, and Wally explains everything that happened in issue 4 and 5, which is the last time we saw Kilgore. And then Wally gets jumped by a couple of, Kilgore zombies. And so, using the power of Seamus, Linda blasts the necks of these two zombies to free them from Kilgore's influence. They kind of explain, we were in the lab, and then all of a sudden, we just blacked out, and it was awful. It was horrible, that horrible experience. Wally sees Tina being attacked by Jerry, so he goes to save her. And Linda reveals that she can start using Seamus's powers without Seamus being in control. So she rips the robot out of Jerry's neck. And Wally is just like, man, she almost ripped his neck out. Jesus Christ. And then Wally realizes that they're not even in the real world anymore, and that they've been sucked into a virtual reality by Kilgore. They find what they believe is Kilgore. And Kilgore has absorbed Dr. Camper, because Dr. Camper tried to control Kilgore and use him to upgrade their mainframe. And so Kilgore was like, I'm going to absorb you and take over you and then try and take over the world again. Linda tries to destroy Kilgore because she's just like, I'm all powerful now. I can use Seamus's powers. And she gets hit by Kilgore and then blacks out, and Seamus takes over and uses his powers to help free Wally from Kilgore, because Kilgore's trying to absorb Wally, and it sends them back to, they're still stuck in the virtual reality, but they've gotten away from Kilgore. Camper has been freed by Kilgore. But then Kilgore comes back. He comes out of, a vending machine that Wally tries to operate, and he grabs Linda and sucks her into the ground, and Wally gets sucked in after her, and he falls through this virtual reality until he ends up at the core of this virtual reality, where he meets Kilgore's true form. Kilgore has built himself a new form where he looks just like a metal guy. He starts off looking kind of like the Avatar, he kind of looks like Aang, but then he grows long hair, He looks a lot like Captain Atom now, but without, like, the atom symbol. And basically, he just reveals that, like, he wanted to absorb Wally so that he could fight Wally, to show how powerful he is and beat Wally. That's basically all he wants to do. He doesn't even care about taking over the world anymore. And so Linda comes in and uses her new Seamus powers, and is just like, ah, and, like, attacks Kilgore and supposedly destroys him. And Wally's like, that's it? It's over? Like, he picks up Kilgore's head, and then he's just like, that was way too easy. You just fly down and blast him with your Irish death ray. And, you know, Wally figures out that Linda, like, this Seamus never existed. And that Seamus, this is the plot twist, this entire time, Seamus has been Kilgore. Kilgore infected Linda's body, pretending to be Seamus, in order to take over her body and set the stage for this whole thing, because Kilgore was in love with Linda and wanted to use her in order to draw Wally into his realm so that he can fight Barry and then kind of, like, prove how strong... Wally. So that he can prove how strong Wally is, because Kilgore just wants Wally to be, like, a hero, as far as I can tell. And then he has no interest in taking over the world, and so he's just kind of like, I'll give you Linda back, you know, she'll be back to normal, you'll be fine. And you know, she's just gonna, and then I'm just gonna leave. Like, I don't care about taking over the world. I did what I wanted to do, which is just to make you look like you're this amazing hero who saved the entire world again. And now I'm just gonna leave and, I don't know, be in here for eternity. And so Kilgore just kind of goes like, see ya, and, like, sends them out of the virtual realm, and supposedly just decides to remain there forever in eternity because he's all powerful and he feels like it. And so Wally gets back and everyone's praising him as a hero, and he's just kind of like, yeah, I guess they will praise me as a hero, like, wonderful, because he knows that, like, this is kind of fake praise that was fabricated by Kilgore. No one was ever in danger, and it was just Kilgore's really weird plan of just kind of making Wally a hero just because he felt like it. And the issue ends there. This one was a weird one. I tried to explain it the best as I could, but as you can tell, this issue is just kind of confusing. And Kilgore's plan is very confusing, but I feel like I kind of got it, you know? Kilgore was just kind of like, I'm all powerful, and I'm going to fight Wally, and then just allow him to be a hero just because I feel like it, and because I just wanted to show him how powerful I am now, and that's it. So, yeah, that's the end of Kilgore for now. Eventually somebody will probably bring him back in the future. I will say, like, I think the ending is just a bit lackluster and way too confusing. But yeah, not bad. Pretty good. So now we're going to be talking about issue 44. Alright, so now we're going to be talking about issue 44. Balance Sheet, written by William Mesnalose, with art by Greg LaRocque and Jose Marzan Jr. This issue takes place from, like, the point of view of, like, Wally is currently talking to his therapist. Remember that therapist that he had ages ago that we haven't seen in a long time? He's talking to him again. The one that would always end up talking about himself or asking Wally stupid questions that would leave Wally dumbfounded, and it almost seemed like the therapist wasn't even listening to his problems. That guy. I don't remember his name, and I don't even think they talk about his name at all in this issue, but he's seeing him. So it starts off with he's telling this therapist about how, like, he went out with Connie and he's been rethinking his relationship with Connie, but he doesn't know if he's actually going to break up with her or not. And while he's at this club with her, he comes across Cassiopeia, and Cassiopeia is talking about how great the courier service is, because he's a member of Red Trinity, if you remember, and he has a courier service, how great it is, and that, like, but it's time for him to like have some fun at the club, so he goes off and has a dance. And Wally notices the fact that Cassiopeia doesn't look as happy as he says he is. But then, before Wally can think about that any longer, he hears a screaming sound. And so he goes because he thinks that it's a mugging. And when he gets there, he finds out that it's not just a mugging, but a guy slitting another dude's throat. So he beats the shit out of this guy, he beats his jaw in like 30 times. And then grabs the guy that had his throat slit. But the guy's fat, and so like he collapses on top of Wally, so Wally has to like pull himself out. He can't carry the dude to the hospital because he's too fat. So Wally reaches into his like throat and closes the aorta so that he bleeds slower. So he's still bleeding out, but he's bleeding out a lot slower. Wally tries different ways to carry this dude's body, but they don't work. So he decides to head off and find a doctor to bring him to the guy. He runs up to a guy, and he's running so fast that the guy's talking in slow motion. And he asks this guy like where a hospital is, and the guy points him to the hospital. And when Wally gets there, he's talking too fast because he's in a panic. And the nurse is just like, "Oh, slow down, like, what do you want?" And he's like, "I need a doctor." And she's like, "Oh, the doctor's right over there." And he turns around, and Wally has a heart attack for a sec because the doctor he sees is really fat, and he wouldn't be able to carry him over to the other fat guy. But then the actual doctor she is pointing out is a lot slimmer and right next to this guy. And so he grabs that doctor and takes him to the other character. Now, like, it's weird to have to mention that these doctors are, like, fat and thin, but, like, it's weirdly important to the story because he needed the skinny doctor in order to carry her over to the fat guy. And then, like, he's fine. Like, we don't see him get helped by this doctor, but we have Wally recollecting it to his, telling his therapist about it. He then tells his therapist about how he's also dealing with the fact that his accountant is dealing with Wally's debt. And Wally talks about how he needs to get a new job. And then he recollects about the fact that, like, he's been dealing with Mason as well, and that, Mason is getting upset with the fact that everyone keeps calling him to do, like, their chores for him and to, like, fix things. And he's just like, I don't want to do that anymore. I want to, get back to living my life instead of building things and fixing things for people. Wally brings up the fact that, like, he's thinking about, like, he's with Connie, but he likes Linda, and he thinks Linda's really cute. And he's just kind of like, Mason's just like, so what are you thinking? Are you thinking of dropping Connie? And Wally's just like, nah, I'm thinking of, like, just not dropping Connie and just being with both of them. And Mason's just like, that's not gonna end well, Wally. Wally asks Mason about how things are going with Joanne, because he and Joanne have been having a bit of a thing, Joanne Garrick. And Mason just ignores him because he doesn't want to talk about that. But obviously there is a thing between them. Mason just isn't interested in telling Wally. Then Barb shows up with her husband and their son. Barb is the woman that was going, like, insane, thinking that the Joker was coming after her son, and then she thought that her son was a demon and she threw him off a bridge. So they show up just so Wally can see that, like, they're really happy and that him being a hero is, like, helping them. And so he, like, plays around with their kid, which is really cute, And then Wally talks to his therapist about how Captain Barrow at the police station wanted him to look into the remaining Velocity 9 freaks because there's still some remaining ones. So Wally agrees to head out with Pied Piper, but Pied Piper believes that, like, the captain is just using Velocity 9 as an excuse to rat out, like, homeless people and mess with them. So when they go there, Wally tells him to prove it by telling Pied Piper to, like, call out the homeless people. So Wally uses, like, his little trumpet to get the attention of these homeless people, and it turns out they are Velocity 9 freaks. The Velocity 9 freaks come out and attack Wally and Pied Piper, and Wally's too busy thinking to himself while he's fighting these Velocity 9 freaks that he doesn't notice that Pied Piper almost gets killed by them. Like, they all grab him and they almost stab him. And, like, Wally just happens to, like, you know, like, he doesn't even try to save Pied Piper. He just accidentally saves Pied Piper because he's fighting all of the Velocity 9 guys. And so, in shock, because he almost fucking died, Pied Piper watches Wally beat up all of these Velocity 9 guys and is just like, bravo, encore, another sterling performance. Wally's just like, shut up. In a jokingly way. And then, yeah, it kind of just ends with Wally talking to his therapist and being like, all this shit is going on with my life and I'm juggling all these different things and I've just got to kind of figure it out. And, yeah, it's been really good talking to you about all this stuff that's been going on in my life. And then the therapist's cat says that it's hungry. Like, it goes like, hungry. And Wally's just like, did you hear that? He's like, must have been our imagination. Like, that was weird. And then Wally's therapist asks Wally if it would be unethical for him if he dated a client of his because she's really pretty. And Wally's like, well, if she's really good looking, then it's definitely not unethical, even though it totally is unethical for a therapist to date a client. And it's definitely bad advice for Wally to tell him to go straight ahead. But it's Wally, so I guess he thinks more with his balls than he does with his brain. And that's where the issue ends. It ends with the therapist being like, yeah, I'm going to date my client because she's good looking. Because that's totally not a bad thing to do. And I guess this weird thing with the cat talking might come up later, but I don't know. I guess we'll find out. And that's the end of issue 44. Another weird one. It's really hard to, like, critique William Mesner-Loeb's writing when it's just so weird. Like, it's not bad, it's just like, what is going on? Okay, we're gonna, like, just show Wally doing a bunch of regular stuff in his life. Like, that's cool. It's just the way that it's written, it can sometimes be a bit confusing. But maybe next week's story is going to be a little bit more straightforward because it's just a Grodd story. Gorilla Grodd is back, and as long as we're not going to be doing any of the, like, because in previous stories Gorilla Grodd has had, like, a human form, and he's been, like, a devolved version of a human, and it's made it really confusing. So hopefully, as long as he's just a straight up gorilla in this story, hopefully this next issue is going to be a bit more straightforward than this one. So yeah, let's move on to issue 45 and see what happens. And see if we get an answer to this cat. Maybe the cat's related to Gorilla Grodd in some way, who knows. Alright, the next issue we're going to be talking about is issue 45, Dog Days, written by William Mesner-Loeb with art by Greg LaRocque and Jose Marzan. The issue begins with Detective Cleveland and Captain Baran, who are, you know, two police that we've been seeing a few times now. They've become recurring characters. They're having a meeting with the Commissioner alongside the Flash because the Commissioner has hired Wally to become, like, to start working with them. So Wally is going to be forced to go out with the police and work with them in order to deal with the Velocity 9 situation because it's been getting out of hand, and he blames Captain Barrow because ever since he took over, Velocity 9 has started festering. There's a bit of stuff about, like, racism in this, you know, it's kind of hinted that the Commissioner might be racist. The detective doesn't like the fact that they've got a white guy being told to, like, order them around and stuff. And Wally's just like, you don't need to worry about that. Like, you don't need another white guy coming in here and, like, telling you what to do. I'm just here to do whatever you want me to do. And so Captain Barrow tells Wally to team up with Detective Cleveland in order to go and check out a place where, like, Velocity 9 guys have been, like, freaks have been known to be holed up. So Wally and Cleveland go to this building, and when they enter it, they find a ton of dead bodies, all these Velocity 9 freaks, and then a ton of dogs that have just ripped them apart. and the dogs, they notice that there's something about the dogs that is off. And we find a dog, one of the dogs specifically that is there. We kind of have a bit of a flashback to this dog, where it was just a regular old dog wandering around looking for food, and then all of a sudden a mysterious voice started speaking to him and calling him, and then he was called into this room with like all these dogs, and the voice that called itself like the light came to this dog and made it like, gave it some food, and then when the dog ate the food, there was something in it that caused the dog to become obedient to this mysterious being, and it turns out that the being talking to this dog is Gorilla Grodd. Gorilla Grodd is using his mind powers to take control of all of the dogs, all of the cats, and later on we would find out that he is taking control of every animal possible in order to create his own animal empire, and he kind of believes himself to be a god now. He talks very like he's like all godlike, and he's like, I am the power, and we are living in the age of the fang, and the tooth and bone, like the tooth and the teeth and fangs, you must, witness, and, philosophical shit like that. So Wally and Cleveland and this other cop that's with them, he doesn't have a name, they all get attacked by the dogs, and so they have to hold them off, and Wally's like, don't shoot any of them, because if you're busy shooting bullets, I can't take care of these dogs, because I can't dodge bullets and beat up dogs at the same time. I wish I could, but I can't. And then eventually, they kind of get that, Wally and Cleveland get their bearings, and by the time they do, the dogs are all gone. And they're like, ah, shit. And so Cleveland's just like, hey, wanna come over to mine for lunch? Wally's like, yeah, of course. So the dogs and the cats all reunite, and Grodd tells them that, he has a plan. And he's like, I am strength. I am wisdom. Listen to me. Listen to my plan. Wally goes to Cleveland's house for dinner, or for lunch, and while he's there, they see on the TV, on the news, that the zoo has gone insane, and that all the animals in the zoo are breaking out and attacking people and escaping. They're all working, they're all coordinating as well, which is something that Wally points out. And Cleveland says that if they're all working together, if all these animals are working together, that means they're probably all going to the same place. So as long as they follow one animal, it should lead them to all of the others. So they see a monkey escaping, and Wally decides to chase after the monkey with Cleveland on his back. So they run through the city, and Cleveland realizes where the animals are all going. They're going to a part of the city that has been entirely abandoned for miles, so you could hide an entire army there. And so that must be where these animals are being kept. So they head into one of the buildings. Wally decides to have a look around, and he enters a room, and Gorilla Grodd is in there with the animals. He's just straight up there, and he's just like, hey, you remember me, don't you, human? Because Gorilla Grodd thinks that this is the same Flash that he fought in the past. I don't think he ever found out that the Flash was Barry Allen, but he thinks that this is the old Flash that he fought. And he's like, you remember me, human. You remember everything about me. And now you will witness the coming age of, the Talon and Fang. And Wally's just like, I gotta deal with Gorilla Grodd, because I know who Gorilla Grodd is. I gotta deal with Gorilla Grodd now, quickly, before he uses his mind powers. So he tries whipping up a tornado, and that just causes Gorilla Grodd to get really mad, so he starts smashing the ground to disorientate Wally by breaking the floorboards beneath him, and then he grabs Wally by the throat and starts crushing his neck, and Wally's just like, my neck, fuck. And then, so Wally, kicks Gorilla Grodd in the face repeatedly to get free, and then kind of rolls away, but Gorilla Grodd uses his mind powers on Wally, and so Wally's just like, my brain. And then Gorilla Grodd, punches him, he king punches him in the back of the head, and knocks Wally to the ground, and then allows his dogs to have their way with Wally, and the dogs all jump on Wally and start tearing him apart. And then Gorilla Grodd sends a dog after Cleveland, who's trying to get away, and Cleveland trips over, and the dog comes right at him and is about to bite his throat out until a hand grabs the dog and pulls it away from Cleveland, holding the dog in the air, and it is a mysterious woman in a black leather suit who has saved Detective Cleveland, and that's where the issue ends. So in the next issue, we're going to find out who this mysterious woman is, and is Wally still alive? And is he going to need a tetanus shot? He probably will. Alright, so now we're talking about issue 46, still written by William Edna-Lowe's, with art by Greg LaRocque and Jose Marzan. This issue is called The Day of the Beast, and continuing on from where the last issue left off, the woman that saved Cleveland is revealed to be the Vixen. She uses her animal, because she has the ability to channel animals and the scent of animals and stuff like that, and use their powers, kind of probe their mind. So she uses her jackal powers to create like a maternal scent for this jackal that attacked Cleveland, so that it will calm it down. And then when all the dogs and cats come, Vixen uses the powers of a Siberian tigress, like the scent of a Siberian tigress, to get them to go away from her so that she doesn't have to fight them, because she doesn't want to harm the animals. So they all run away, and that's when Vixen decides that like she needs to figure out who's controlling them, and she can sense something that's really strong, and then she gets smacked across the side of the head by Grodd, who comes in and is like, "Oh, it's you! You're the one who's messing with my like children." And so Vixen decides that, like, she's never seen a gorilla like this, who's so mentally unstable. She tries to transform into Grodd's species, which is obviously they're not even, like, real gorillas. They're all kind of, like, a different species that just happens to look like gorillas. So she becomes like Grodd and starts attacking Grodd and fighting him. And she starts kind of losing control. And that's when Wally wakes up, because he's really badly injured. And he knows who Vixen is. And he's like, what's Vixen doing here? And so Vixen smashes Grodd through a wall and then threatens Cleveland because she's losing control. He's like, Vixen, for God's sake, like, what's wrong with you? And when Vixen realizes that Grodd has escaped, she kind of snaps out of it, and it's like, I've never lost control like that before. Like, that was crazy. We need to get Wally help because he's bleeding out. Like, do you know anyone? And Cleveland's like, my wife is a nurse. Like, take him to my house and she'll fix him up. And so Vixen uses her bird powers to fly Wally to Cleveland's house. Meanwhile, Grodd is contemplating killing Vixen because she stands in his way. And he's also building a machine that's going to control all of the animals in the city. So Wally is taken back to Cleveland's house, where he's fixed up. He also happens to have another suit, so he can just put his new costume on, like another costume on, because his old one got torn up. Looks exactly the same. He hasn't gotten a new design yet. And that's when they kind of talk about how Vixen used to be a member of the Suicide Squad, and that now she's a fashion designer, and she's just kind of doing, like, superhero stuff on her own now. And they decide that they're going to need some help in order to scope the city, because the mayor is refusing to send police out into the city because he's afraid that it's going to escalate the situation. So Wally calls up Pied Piper on the phone, in order to get some help from Piper. Meanwhile, a bunch of monkeys are sent out into the city in order to hack into the electrical wires and stuff in order to power Grodd's machine. The machine gets powered up, and all of the animals in the city's minds are controlled at the same time, and they start attacking the city at random. So, like, there's these guys that are, like, torturing a cat, and a Siberian tiger comes in and attacks them. Mason is helping a couple fix their toilet, and an alligator shows up in their bathroom. And there's like bears attacking like bears and birds and stuff attacking the police station, and Vixen and Pied Piper and Wally are all together, and Cleveland's there, and they're trying to figure out, like, we gotta find Grodd, we gotta try and sort this situation out, because Grodd is currently taunting us, knowing that we can't really do anything. And Vixen suggests that if she mentally syncs with the birds, she might know where Grodd is, and they're like, it's too dangerous, and Vixen's like, I gotta try, like, it's better than nothing. And so she syncs with the birds, and Gorilla Grodd can sense her, and he calls her to him, and so she flies off, and Wally and Piper decide to head after her, and which is what Gorilla Grodd is hoping. And so Vixen kind of stops in the middle of the park, and Wally's just like, I thought she was taking us to Grodd, I can't see him anywhere, like, why is she just standing there? And then Vixen swipes at Piper and scratches his chest open, and so Piper just starts bleeding out, and he's just like, ah! And so Wally's just like, Piper! And, like, takes him to safety, and then fights Vixen. He just, like, slams into her. He just runs into her, and he's just like, rah! Takes her to the ground. But then she, like, kind of uses her snake powers to constrict Wally and try and choke him out. And she succeeds, and then upon doing so, she kind of comes to again, and is like, what have I done? And that's when Grodd shows up, and he's like, you're under my control, because I'm Grodd. And so Wally and Piper are put in cages, and Grodd plans on using them as, like, food for his pets. And one of the dogs, who is kind of, like, not under control, sees wants to help save Wally. So there's a dog that's not under Grodd's control for some reason. I guess he just managed to resist the machines. Is hoping for some help to save Wally and Pied Piper, and then he sees two mysterious figures in the distance coming towards him, and one of them is another dog, and the other one is an older man who kind of looks like an army man. And the dog is like a white dog that reveals its name, or like light blue, who reveals his name to be Rex, and that he's here to help. And then that's where the issue ends. And so I guess we'll find out who Rex is, and if Rex is going to be able to save the day. And that'll be in issue 47, which will be continuing. I think it's the finale to this Grodd storyline. It's either this one or there's another one after it. It's either 47 or 48. I don't know yet. But yeah. Alright, so the next issue we're talking about is issue 47, written by William Mesnalodes, with art by Greg LaRocque and Jose Marzan. Continues on from where the last issue left off. Wally West, Hartley Sawyer, aka Pied Piper, and Mary, aka Vixen, have all been captured by Gorilla Grodd, and they're all being tortured. Especially Mary, she's being forced to, like, turn into different animals by Gorilla Grodd, like, to make her all, like, useless and in pain. And Wally and Piper can't escape because Wally can't use his powers, because every time he uses his powers, he gets zapped by this collar that's attached to him at the moment. So they can't escape. Meanwhile, the dog from earlier, who doesn't have a name, I don't think, but he meets Rex the Wonder Dog, who is a character introduced in this issue, or probably introduced earlier in DC. I don't know if they're a returning character from DC history, but as far as I know, they're created in this. So Rex the Wonder Dog comes in and is basically just like, I'm gonna save everyone because I'm a super powerful dog who doesn't age. And Rex's friend, whose name isn't mentioned, surprisingly, he works for the army, and basically, like, when he was a kid, he got a puppy, and the puppy was experimented on this doc named Anabolus, and given like powers, and like Anabolus was killed, and then the dog just kept growing, and ever since then they've worked together as a team, and he's gotten really old now because they've been working together for 50 years, while the dog has stayed like the same age. He even makes a weird joke where he's just like, and you know, eventually they're gonna call Rex in to put me down, which is like, wow, that's dark. So Rex tells the dog to like not worry because he's gonna go and talk to all the animals because he's an animal and he's gonna help convince them to turn against Grodd. Because the animals don't want to work for Grodd because they know that Grodd only cares about taking down humans and that he doesn't care about them. So Grodd has like his machine, and he's basically just, he thinks he's won. You know, he thinks he's won. The animals are taking over the city. He has his enemies at his mercy. You know, he forces Vixen to turn into a bird, and then because he has power over her mind, and like she has to talk like a bird too. And then he turns her into a slug so that she can't do anything. And he's zapping Wally and Piper and torturing them. Meanwhile, the city's being attacked by elephants and rhinos and lions and penguins and everything. They're all attacking the city, and Linda Park is like, this is horrible, like, we're in a real bad state right now, and we can only hope that eventually, like, the Flash or somebody could save us. And then she, as soon as she's done reporting, she's like, this is Linda Park for news. Alright, let's get the fuck out of here, because, like, I don't want to get eaten by a lion. So she, like, runs away. Meanwhile, the commissioner is freaking out, because he's being told to go out and talk to the news, and he's like, no way! Like, I want to stay in here. And they're like, the mayor is currently, like, in a severe, state, so you're the only one that can go out there and talk to people. So the guy who is friends with Rex, or owns Rex, I don't think they ever say his name, but he comes in and is basically like the commissioner is like, oh, you must be from the army, like, you must be bringing the nerve gas that I ordered. And the dude is like, I'm not gonna let you put nerve gas into the city because my friend is currently out there, and I don't want him to get, nerve gassed. And so he punches the commissioner out. Just knocks him out. And he's like, well, at least he's going to be okay now, because, like, he was freaking out. So now that he's knocked out, he's not going to even remember what's going on. Cleveland talks about the fact that his daughter has a pet kitten, and since all the animals are going crazy, she might get attacked by a kitten. And as he's talking about that, she gets home, and she gets attacked by a bunch of squirrels, and then her kitten comes out of the other room, and we don't get to see what happens, but it's assumed that her kitten is going to attack her. Meanwhile, Grodd is just beating the crap out of Wally, and Piper is trying to get close to some grass so that he can use it as a whistle, because he's like the master of sound. And that's when all of the animals start turning against Gorilla Grodd. They start uprising towards him. All the rats are like, we want to build our own empire, and all the zebras are just like, we want to just run free. And so all the animals are turning against Grodd, and he's like, how dare you turn against me, this all-powerful being, like, I'll put you in your place, look at my power of mind. And he uses his mind powers on the mice to lift them in the air, and then he just starts making them explode. It's really graphic. Like, there's just, like, chunks of mice going everywhere. You see, like, the bones inside of them and stuff. He's, like, ripping them in with his hands. It's really fucked up. And the animals are like, we can't beat him. He's too powerful. And while he's busy killing mice, Piper manages to make a little whistle out of some grass, and he blows it at a frequency that allows him to break the electric collar that's around Wally's neck. So Wally slams into Grodd, because Grodd's like, what the fuck? You broke it? And then this causes Grodd to kind of lose control of Vixen's mind a little bit, because he's busy using his mind powers on Wally. And that's when Rex shows up, and Grodd realizes that Rex is the one responsible for the animals all uprising against him. He's like, you're the one that convinced them to do this. which means you're the one I'm going to have to destroy. So Rox and Grodd get into a fight, and Rex, and Rex is like on Grodd, like trying to rip him apart. And then all of the mice start attacking Grodd, and they overwhelm him. They all climb over his body, and he's like, there's too many, but not enough for my force of mind. And he starts using it, and that's when, to blast all the mice off of him, and that's when Vixen comes in and uses her electric eel powers to zap Grodd, which sends him collapsing back into his intelligence machine. And then the intelligence machine, he smashes into it, and upon destroying it, mixed with the electricity, he loses his intelligence and just becomes a regular gorilla, and he's at near death. He's not dead, but they mention that he's pretty much dead. He's very close to death. And that's when all the animals are kind of told by Rex that now that the machine's destroyed, they might go back to normal, but they don't know for sure. So if they don't go back to normal and they can still talk and shit, they're just gonna have to keep it a secret from their families and stuff for the rest of their lives. So the animals all go away, and they're just like, yeah, we'll do that. We'll keep it a secret. And Wally and the gang head back to Cleveland's house, where they find out that his daughter wasn't attacked by his cat, and that her kitten, protected her from the squirrels. And they're all like, oh, that's nice. And then Chunk shows up, Chester, and he's like, hey, Wally, something terrible has happened. I think your mother is dead. And Wally's just like, what? And that's where the issue ends. It ends right there on that bombshell. So I guess we'll find out, is Wally's mum dead in the next issue? Alright, now for issue 48. This is another weird one, but not as weird as some of the other ones. Written by William Mesnaloz, with art by Greg LaRocque and Jose Marzan. This is Persistence of Vision. So this issue starts off with a young lady. She's in class, and she's kind of daydreaming, and then all of a sudden, the history of Vandal Savage just floods into her mind. She just starts thinking about Vandal Savage. She doesn't understand that it's a real thing that she's thinking of. She just thinks that she's thinking of a really cool movie idea all of a sudden. She basically talks about the origin of Vandal Savage, where there were two tribes. The Clan, and two enemies. Clan, and then Vandar is the other guy. And so Vandar eventually became Vandal, who was evil and who was immortal, evil, dreamed of world domination. And Clandar became the being known as the Immortal Man, who is created specifically for this issue, has never showed up in DC before, but he is apparently Vandal's rival and is basically there to take him down. It's essentially the Immortal Man was replaced by Hawkman and Hawkgirl in the Legends of Tomorrow show. Surprisingly, the Immortal Man has never been used in anything related to Vandal Savage, whether it be Young Justice or anything, which means he probably isn't a persistent DC character. He probably gets forgotten or something. So that happens, and then, Wally, Chester, and Wally's new dog, who has just been following him ever since it got out of Grodd's control, all go back to Wally's house, but Chester keeps the dog outside. He's like, oh, you stay outside now. And they're basically talking about how, Mary's apparently dead, according to Chester, but Chester says, she's been gone for a week, so, without hearing from her, so we're assuming she's dead. She might not be, but it's very likely that she's dead. And then the Elongated Man comes in because his nose twitches whenever he senses a crime or a investigation. So he just stretches his way through the door and is just like, hey, I'm a detective, I'll help you find your mum. And Wally is just insistent that his mum is not dead. But Elongated Man is just Ralph is just yeah, I'm just gonna look around your house for clues anyway, because, my nose twitches when there's clues nearby. And so he just starts going around Wally's house, and he's like, this is my house, you're not gonna find any clues. He's like, yes, I've already found clues. See all these bills for your teleporter? somebody's been using your teleporter and going to all these different countries. And Wally's like, I haven't been to these countries in months. Where are all these bills coming from? And they conclude that Mary has been using the teleporter for her own needs, which we know. And that she's been going out, and Wally refuses to believe it because he doesn't think that his mom is smart enough to learn how to reprogram a teleporter. And he gets so pissed off at them that he just decides to leave because he's like, I'm going to prove you wrong and I'm going to figure out where my mom is, and it has nothing to do with the teleporter. So Chunk and Elongated Man decide to work together while Wally decides to work on his own to find Mary. Meanwhile, the young lady at school turns out to be Immortal Man in his reincarnated form, because unlike Vandal Savage, who is just one guy who just never ages, Immortal Man is a guy that resurrects constantly, and I guess resurrects as like women and other genders as well, you know, and so now he's resurrected as a young woman. And she embarrasses her teacher in school because she's drawing Vandal, and then he asks her to come up in front of the class and talk about her drawings, and so she talks about the entire history of Vandal Savage, and then because the teacher is a wise ass, she reveals that like the FBI paid him to join ecology protest groups and provoke him to do something violent so they could be arrested. And he's just like, fuck, how does she know that? And it's because she's the Immortal Man, and she lived back in the day when the teacher was still in college. So that's a pretty good moment in this. Meanwhile, Wally goes to the police in order to get help to find Mary. The police are currently, like Cleveland and Baron, are dealing with drugs just being ditched on the street, and they don't know why. Like, somebody's just going around throwing drugs all over the street. And they tell Wally that there's been a note left for him from Ben Hayes. Ben Hayes is obviously Wally's tax attorney, so Wally decides to go off and talk to his tax attorney. He gets there, and his attorney tells him that, you know, that he's been dealing with bankruptcy because of the teleporter, but he also mentions that somebody's buying up all of Wally's bad paper. He's like, what does that even mean? Like, can you tell me what that means? And then Wally passes out and tells his attorney to get food for him because he's passing out from lack of energy. So he decides to order a bunch of pizzas. Meanwhile, some kids find some drugs on the street because they're everywhere. And Elongated Man takes it away from them and is like, yeah, nah, drugs aren't for kids. Go play ball or something. And then Chunk knows that there's like there's gunfire going on right now. There's like a street battle going on with guns, and so he decides to teleport Elongated Man there. I don't know how he knows. He just does. Like, he just senses it, and it's just like, we gotta go. And so he teleports to this gunfight that's going on, and the gunfight is, remember that guy that Mary met in Spain who was like a agent? It's him, and he's here, and so he's having this gunfight with these guys. So Elongated Man and Chunk help them fight him, and then Wally shows up and takes all the bad guys' guns, and so they win the gunfight. And then it's revealed by this guy that Mary became a spy off panel. So the last time we saw her teleport away, she's been doing spy stuff, and we didn't even know. And I don't know if some of her spy stories are in other series, but they're not in here. So, like, we just gotta believe him and be like, she's been doing all this awesome stuff, and she's a really awesome spy who found out the whereabouts of this mastermind all by herself. You know, it would have been cool if we actually got to see that. But she's been kidnapped by a drug lord. And so Wally can't fathom the idea that she's a spy. He just can't take it. He's like, no, that can't be true. She's not a spy. I'll figure out where she is my own. And he heads back to his house to rest so that he can look for his mum a bit later. He greets his dog and is like, well, I guess you're the only true friend that I have, because everyone else thinks that my mum's a super spy and is really good with teleporters, while I know for a fact that my mum is stupid and she can't do any of that shit. And all she's doing is causing problems for me because I'm in debt because of her. Which I can understand that part. You know, it's a bit mean for Wally to be like, my mum's stupid and can't be a spy. But also, it's understandable if he's like, yeah, but my mum also is the reason I'm in debt because she keeps using my fucking teleporter and, you know, making my bills go through the roof. So when he gets home, Vandal Savage shows up, but he's really old. He's like, Vandal Savage, excuse me, lad, may I come in? We really should talk. And then meanwhile, the reincarnated immortal man, who is this girl whose name has not been revealed, she just starts flying because she senses that Vandal Savage is around. And so she flies off to find him. And that's where the issue ends. It ends with her being like, Vandal Savage is here, I gotta go to him, I gotta stop him. And that's it. That's the end of the issue. Real weird. Pretty good though. I enjoyed it. I enjoy this kind of take on Vandal Savage, and I enjoy this new lore that they're adding, where there's this other immortal guy who is Vandal Savage's rival. It's cool that Mary is being pictured as an awesome spy, but like I wish we just got to see it instead of it all happening off panel and having them tell us that she's great. You know? But yeah, we'll find out what's probably the conclusion to this story in the next issue, issue 49. Alright, so the next issue that we're going to be talking about is issue 49, written by William Esnalos, with art by Greg LaRocque and Jose Marzan Jr. This story is called Savage Season, taking place right after the previous issue. Vandal Savage, who looks really old now, has come to visit Wally West at his house because Wally's mom has been kidnapped and Wally is currently looking for her. So Vandal reveals to Wally that he kidnapped Wally's mum. And he also reveals that the reason why he's so old now is because the last time Wally and he fought, he got Velocity 9 stabbed into him, and the Velocity 9 has been has accelerated his aging process, so he's going to die. Wally's like, well, you're not going to get any sympathy from me. And he's like, yeah, I know, I'm not looking for sympathy. Ever since I got injected with Velocity 9, I hate drugs now. So I've decided to get rid of drugs the way that I want to. And the way I've decided to get rid of drugs is by flooding the market with so many drugs that, like, drugs are worthless in terms of money, and so people will stop using them. Now that means that there's going to be a lot of people that die from overdoses, but it's only like 300,000, and that doesn't matter to me, because I'm dying anyway. And Wally's just like, that's horrific, that's awful, like, I've got to stop you, like, that's an awful plan. And Vandal is just like, yeah, I knew you'd try to stop me, which is why I kidnapped your mum, so that you won't be able to, like, so that, you know, you'll fall into my new plan, which is to have one final battle with you, where one of us kills each other, because I'm dying, so, like, I want a chance to kill you, and you want a chance to kill me, so you better play along, because otherwise everyone you love will die. You know, because I got a bit of a thing of, like, you know, I know who people's loved ones are. And I know how strong the love of a family is. And so it reveals that Vandal Savage has been, while he's talking to Wally, kidnapping everyone in Wally's life that Wally loves. He kidnaps Mason. He kidnaps Wally's tax attorney and Linda Park. But before they get kidnapped, they get visited by that young girl from the school who's currently, like, the resurrection, or like the next, like, Immortal Man, like the resurrection of Immortal Man. So she comes to warn them that Wally's gonna die and that they need to do something about it. And when she leaves, they get knocked out. They're, like, talking about it, like, we gotta save Wally. Oh, and then they get knocked out by the gas. Connie gets kidnapped while she's doing some modeling. And then Chester and Ralph get kidnapped. They get, like, knocked out by this little robot girl whose head pops off. Knockout gas comes out and knocks them both out. And then Vandal talks about the fact that he's not telling Wally this, but it's kind of him telling the reader this, or him telling himself. He has a machine that sucks out the energy of any living being. So Wally decides that he needs to stop Vandal once and for all, because Vandal's goal is to just beat a Flash, because he's fought every single Flash up until now and he's never beaten any of them. The police are talking about how the drugs is, like, the market is the streets are flooded with so many drugs, and Wally knows the only way to stop the drugs is to stop Vandal. So he heads home to his teleporter and he finds that the teleporter has already been set to a specific time period in the Egyptian embassy. Or, like, not a time period. It's been set to Egypt, so he gets into it, he teleports to Egypt, and that's where he finds Vandal Savage in the middle of the desert with all of his loved ones sitting on these machines, like, sitting on these panels, and then there's a panel for Wally to stand on. And Vandal basically says, your loved ones are on these panels, and if you don't stand on that panel and fight me in a duel, a literal duel with a gun, they'll die. Like, they'll have their energy sucked out if you take one step off of that pallet. So he expects Wally to kill him, to be fast enough to kill him. And Vandal is attempting to shoot Wally. So Wally tries to speed off the pallet fast enough to catch Vandal, and he thinks he's gonna do it. He's like, I'm on the sand, I've got him in my sights. Blam! Vandal shoots a bullet straight through Wally's chest. The bullet just goes straight through his chest, blood spurting out the back. Wally's mom is like, Wally! And Wally just, like, flops over, falls on the ground, dead. No fake out. Vandal's just like, I did it. I killed him. Let's go. Sorry. That took a lot out of my throat when I yelled like that. And so Vandal's like, we're done here, Wally's dead. So he takes Wally's loved ones away, and they all just drive away, off into the distance, God knows where. And then the young girl, who is currently the new Immortal Man, I guess, finds Wally's dead body, and is like, the Flash is dead. Which means I'm the only one who can stop Vandal Savage. And so she flies off to stop Vandal, while she just leaves Wally there, and his body. So that's where the issue ends. Wally's dead. Obviously, we know that he's gonna come back. I'm curious how, though. Like, are we gonna get a moment of Wally, like, in heaven? Like, is there gonna be some of that kind of shit, you know? I guess we'll find out in the next issue. Alright, so here we are, issue 50. Massive issue for the Flash. Wally is getting his brand new costume, his most iconic costume in the series, in this issue. It's written by Willie Mezzalo's, with art by Greg LaRocque and Jose Marzan. The issue is twice as long as most issues. So yeah, let's get straight into it. So continuing on from the last issue, Wally is dead, and now he is in the afterlife. Wally is floating through heaven, and he eventually makes it up to, like, the clouds, where he finds Jay Garrick. Jay has got, like, he looks like God. Like, or like what most images of God are depicted as. He's just got, like, really, really long hair and a beard, like, really long grey hair and a beard. He says that, like, everyone who comes to heaven has somebody that can show them around, and for Wally, it's going to be Barry, of course, because Barry is Wally's old mentor. And so Barry comes in, and he's like, hey, Wally, we got plenty of time, because we're, like, it's always the now in heaven. So, like, you got time to say hi to everyone that's here, and like Iris is there, and then all of Wally's family and friends are there, and Wally's like, "You're all here? Like, are you all dead?" And they're all like, "Yeah, like because you went on Earth to save us, Vandal Savage killed us all, and now we're all together in heaven." So it's like really weird and kind of creepy. Everyone's dead. You know, Starfire's there, Raven's there, like pretty much every woman that Wally has ever known is in heaven, and they're all crowding around him and being like real sexual towards him, which is kind of weird. Power Girl, there's definitely an emphasis on Power Girl for some reason, where she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I was so mean to you before, Wally, like let me make it up to you," and she's like kissing him and stuff. And then a mysterious figure mentions the name I think it's supposed to be Barry. He mentions about Vandal, and Wally's like, "Vandal Savage?" And then Vandal Savage shows up and he's like, "Yeah, and I've come to ruin heaven for you, Wally, because I'm evil and I hate you." And Wally's like, "No, you can't." And he basically relives Vandal shooting him in the chest multiple times. And then he like touches the wound in his chest because he's like, "I'm not dead. How am I not dead? You've shot me repeatedly." And he realizes that he's bleeding oil. And then he's like, "I'm bleeding oil? That means that like we're not human, we're machines." And it turns out that Wally is actually like, you know, in his own mind freaking out because he is currently inside Kilgore, and Kilgore is going into his chest and trying to revive him through technology. So back when Kilgore and Wally last had their encounter, I forgot to mention that Kilgore gave Wally like a little tablet thing, like a little ring, and he said that when Wally needed it, that ring would help him. And the ring, when Wally died, turned into like an incubator to keep Wally alive and to make him good again, to heal him. So that's what's currently happening with Wally. Meanwhile, Vandal is, you know, continuing with his plan. Now that Wally's dead, he's trying to kill all of the drug users, all of the people that are shipping, like, delivering drugs and stuff. So he has enlisted Christina, who is the female member of the Blue Trinity. He's got her hooked on, like, Velocity 9. And he gives her a new costume, and she becomes Lady Savage. And he starts sending her out to kill all of the the people that are, like, selling drugs and stuff. So Wally eventually gets found by the young girl who is now the new Immortal Man. And he wakes up from the incubator, and he's like, "Ah, Kilgore!" Because he figures out that it's Kilgore that's healing him. And he's all healed. Like, he wakes up, and then the machine incubator that he was in just kind of, like, disappears and goes under the ground because it's Kilgore, you know. And then Immortal Man is like, or Immortal Woman, or whatever you would want to call them now. He's like, we gotta go and stop Vandal Savage because like he's killing people. And Wally's like, "I've got to get a new suit first though because my current suit is torn open. So we got to quickly head back so I can quickly make a new suit." So they head back to Wally's apartment to make a new suit. But his suit making stuff, like his suit making kit, is all gone. Like the kit that Barry gave him to make suits, it's gone. So he heads to Tina, and he's exhausted, and he asks Tina to help him make a new suit. So she starts working with Star Labs, and they start doing tests and stuff on Wally in order to make him a new costume that's going to be like heat resistant, tear resistant, a suit that he can literally go at like his highest speeds without fear of ever ripping it. So like he'll never have to hold back his speed again, except for when he doesn't want to destroy the city, you know? So meanwhile, a bunch of drug abusers and drug peddlers are getting slaughtered by Lady Savage. And then Vandal reveals that like because he stole Wally's suit kit, he has one of Barry Allen's old Flash costumes. And he gives it to Lady Savage, and she wears it and becomes like a Lady Flash, or the fourth Flash, technically. Yeah, which is pretty crazy. I was not expecting that like we would get a a female Flash so early into like as early as the 90s. You know, like that's pretty early for like introducing female versions of characters who were typically typically men. You know, while Wally's waiting for his new costume to be made, he finds like a homeless guy, and the homeless guy gives him a bit of advice about life. Wally's like, "Thanks, man. Like, I really appreciate those words. Like, that's awesome." Really gives him the courage he needs in order to go and stop Vandal Savage. So Wally goes to Vandal Savage and just straight up gives him a warning. He's like, "I want to have a final battle between us, a final showdown. You show up, you better be there." And yeah, so he just like zooms over there, tells Vandal Savage that he wants to fight, and then leaves. And Vandal was like, "Well, I guess we're gonna have to have a final showdown with Wally." And Vandal is actually shocked that Wally's still alive. He thinks that he's a ghost at first. So it's pretty great seeing Vandal, you know, kind of scared, you know. Wally heads back to Star Labs, and his new costume is finished. He dons it for the first time. It's got those, like, iconic white eyes that Wally West's Flash is going to be known for from now on. And the, like, shininess, like, almost metallic look to his costume. I really love this Flash costume. I think it would reach its peak when he gets, like, the cover over the nose. But I still love this version that doesn't have that. I think my favorite version is this, but with, like, the cover over his nose. But this suit is peak. I love this Flash suit. It's so good. So Vandal sets up Wally's mum to, you know, be killed, and Lady Flash, I guess we'll call her now, is there in order to help kill her, and Vandal is like, "Come at me, Flash!" And that's when she's like, "Wait, do you hear something?" And like they just see a massive trail of fire, and Wally just comes like crashing through and just like running the fastest he's ever ran. You know, as fast as he did when his powers recently came back and he destroyed half the city. He's running at that speed right now. He's turning the floor into lava. He defeats all of Vandal Savage's Velocity 9 guys in seconds. And then, like, he's prepared to fight Lady Flash. But Lady Flash just turns on Vandal and is like, I work for the law, so I'm going to... Like, you're going to jail, Vandal, because I don't want to be a villain, you know? And wearing this Flash costume has made me feel more like a hero, you know? And then Vandal's like, "You dare turn on me? Then I'll kill you." And he just straight up shoots her, or tries to anyway. But he fails because you don't even see it happen. That's how fast he does it. Like, there's no drawing in the panel of Wally catching the bullets. He just catches them. He reveals that he caught them. It's like, I caught all the bullets, you know. I could have stopped them 50 feet away, 2 miles away, 10 miles away. I can always stop you, Savage, even if you live another 10,000 years. Can I try another 6? I reloaded the gun for you. He's like, "Don't mock me!" Well, he's just like, "Muck you? I despise you. You play at dictator while old men have to grub in the street for bottles to survive? People told me I could be as fast as Barry. I just had to believe it. Well, I believe it. Now go on, shoot." And he takes Vandal's hand and forces him to point the gun at Wally's head. And Vandal goes to pull the trigger and he can't do it. He's like, "I can't do this. I'd rather just walk away and die, because I know I've lost." And then Immortal Man is just like, "Wait, Savage, like, you can't just walk off." He's like, "I'm not just walking off. I've got a bomb on my chest and I'm gonna blow you all up with me because I'm not rotting in jail as an old man." And before he can set off the bomb, Immortal Woman vanishes with Vandal and takes him away. It's like, "I've got somebody who wants to see you." And then there's nothing left of them except the gun that Vandal had. Lady Flash is like, "Hey, Wally, like, I've still got your old costume." And Wally's like, "Hey, you can keep it, you know? You can wear it from now on." And Wally and Mary decide to head home because everything's all good now. And Wally's saved the day. They're all safe. But as soon as they head back, Wally's attorney is there. And he's like, "Wally, crazy news. but you're rich. And Wally is shocked. Because he's rich again? How? What does this even mean? What the heck is going on? We're gonna find out next time on in issue 51. So yeah, this issue was really good. Really loved this one. A really good landmark issue. Getting to see Wally get his new costume, his conflict with Vandal, and really seeing him let loose for the first time on... this is the first time he's ever let loose on purpose, and the first time Wally has ever been, scary. And, incredibly serious. And it's great. I love it. Alright, so the next issue we're going to be talking about is issue 51, written by William Mesnaloz, with art by Greg LaRocque, and, is it Roy Richardson? Yeah, Roy Richardson. So, we don't have Jose Marzan anymore. So, this issue continues not long after the previous one. Wally, Christina, and Hartley, who is Pied Piper, are all just hanging out on top of a bridge together. They've just come to chat, and Wally decides to tell Hartley that he's probably going to be rich again. And Hartley's just like, well, that's great for you, but how are you going to be rich again? And Wally doesn't really explain why, but he talks about how, it has something to do with, the villain Icicle is the reason why he's gonna end up being rich again. I don't know why, they don't really explain it, but, yeah. Apparently, a jewel thief is the reason why Wally's gonna be rich again. And Piper is just like, yeah, but he killed people. And Wally's just like, shut up, Piper. Mom says the decision's mine. I'd sure like to move into a better apartment, maybe clear up some of my debts. So apparently, Wally's just receiving money from Icicle for some reason. Maybe we'll hear more about it later. So they decide that they're going to go and have lunch, but then a hostage situation, a report on a hostage situation at Redfield High comes on the news, and so Wally, Christina, and Hartley go to deal with that. Meanwhile, at the, Keystone Power and Light facility, two security guards are having a chat, and then all of a sudden, a fist breaks through the floor, and it's a character known as the Proletariat, who is a brand new character. He's basically just Russian Captain America. He was a super soldier for the Russian government. He's an ally of Red Trinity. Remember them? And he's basically Captain America. He was created to fight the Nazis. He lives for a really long time. But unlike Captain America, he's, not a good guy anymore. And he's actually an enemy of their own country. And now he's trying to force... he wants to just... he just wants to become, he wants to take down the entire government and everything. He's one of those guys. He's against the government and all that shit, and has become an enemy of his own country. So the Red Trinity are called by him, and he basically tells them to come and see him so that they can work together and, or at least, he's basically letting them know that, he has these people captive, and they're probably going to want to try and stop him, and that they should come and see him if they want to stop him, but they're not going to be able to. He's basically calling them up, being like, "I'm being evil. I'm doing bad things. Try and stop me." And that's when they, their ambassador from Russia, whose name is Andre, he shows up and basically tells Red Trinity that they need to go and stop the Proletarian because he's a massive problem for everyone, including Russia. And he's pretty obsessive over Red Trinity, and is kind of you aren't, they're we're American citizens now, speak to us in American, because he keeps talking to them in Russian. And he's like, no, you're Russian, as long as I'm around, you're Russian citizens, and you're working for me, He's that guy. Meanwhile, Wally, Hartley, and Christina show up at the hostage situation that's going on. They take care of all the guys there. They steal their guns. They bring in a can of tear gas to knock them out. and they just, beat the crap out of them and eventually sort out the situation. And that's when a cop comes in and says that Captain Barrow got an emergency call from Catalyst Couriers, which is Red Trinity, and so they decide to go over and see what's going on. So they head over to Red Trinity, where the ambassador is. The ambassador originally doesn't want to work with them, but Wally's like, I'm gonna vouch for Christina and Hartley, and, since this is an international incident, you're probably gonna want me to call it, in the Justice League. So if you don't let me and my friends help, I'll call in the Justice League, and that's not what you want. And he's like, yeah, that's definitely not what I want. I don't want the Justice League getting involved. So he agrees. He tells them the origin of the Proletarian, which I've already gone over. And he mentions that the Proletarian is at the power station, so they decide to go to the power station in order to stop him. And they bring the ambassador with them because they believe the ambassador might be able to talk him down or distract him. But he causes an issue while they're running there. The ambassador is, freaking out. So they decide to sedate him to shut him up. Because he's just I'll make you pay for, making me go through this by carrying me at super speed, because I hate it. And so, they sedate him. They get to the power station, where they fight the Proletarian. And the Proletarian reveals that, he found a explosive that was left behind by the Kund back when the invasion was happening, and that he's just going to blow up the entire city. So they got to stop him from doing that. So he fights them. Massive fight goes on. The ambassador tries to stop him, and that's when the Proletarian reveals his bomb. So Wally decides to use his super speed to pull the bomb out of the main control unit. And then he tries to carry the bomb away to throw it into the ocean, but it's too heavy and it's breaking his back. So Christina is like, I'll help you, Wally, and she shows up, and they carry the bomb together to the ocean, and they chuck it into the water, and, they dive into the water with it, and I guess it explodes in the water, and it's all good, and they succeed. And Christina actually gives Wally, she plants a kiss on him. He's like, oh, thanks to... And then she just, kisses him. Christina is Lady Flash, in case you didn't guess. In case you need a reminder. And then after that happens, Christina, Wally, and Hartley meet on top of the bridge. They mentioned that the Proletarian had gotten away, and Wally is just like, well, let the Red Trinity deal with him because he's their enemy, and, he's their problem. So they deal with Proletarian off screen. Maybe they get their own little spin-off or something, or that's going to be a future story. And they kind of just chill after that, They just talk about how, they can relax. They beat the Proletarian. And Wally talks about how, Christina's a great girl, but he doesn't want to take advantage of her because, he kind of sees her as, a lost puppy ever since she's, recently getting out of her drug abuse problems and stuff. He doesn't want to take advantage of her, but he still thinks that she's really nice. So who knows? And that's where it ends. That's the end of the issue. Not a bad issue, but I definitely think it's a step down from issue 50, a major one. It really just depends on whether or not you like Red Trinity. The villain was pretty lackluster. He's basically just... The fact that he's just, Russian Captain America, which means he's basically just Red Guardian, but, evil. Yeah. So, if I was going to give this issue... I don't normally give these issues a rating, but, I would probably rate this, a 6 out of 10. Not awful, but, not great. Yeah. Alright, now we're going to be talking about issue 52, Death and Taxes. By William Misnerlobes, Greg LaRocque, and Jose Marzan is back doing inking. So in this issue, Wally joins the IRS. He's in so much debt that he's forced to join the IRS in order to try and pay off his debt. So he heads to the IRS with Mason, and the guy there tells them about this dude named Miles Anton Kramer who owes a lot of money, and he's been dealing in stock, and he just disappeared off the map, so they need Wally to go and find him. And so he's like, welcome to the IRS, Mr. West. So Wally and Mason and Wally's tax attorney go to have dinner, or lunch, and neither his lawyer or Mason can pay, so Wally has to pay for them. And they're just like, man, you're insane trying to look for this guy. Like, how are you even going to find him? And Wally's like, well, I guess I'll find him while going on a walk with my dog. So Wally, who, he still has the dog from, so the dog that was under mind control of Gorilla Grodd is Wally's official dog. And in this issue, we finally get a name for him. His name is now Mercury, which was a name that Tina came up with. So this guy who is enemies of Kramer shows up and basically asks Wally if he can just kill Kramer for him. He's like, hey, can you punch Kramer in the face 600 times until he's dead? I'll pay you for it. And Wally's like, how about I punch you 300 times in the face and we call it even? And the guy, kind of spits and then, leaves. And this old woman that Wally's sitting next to is like, you know what, kid? I would have just taken the money. As Wally decides to take Mercury away, a couple of other members of the IRS come to offer and help Wally because, they owe money as well. Wally jumps into the car with them and is like, hey, don't mind my dog, Mercury, he's coming with us. And he asks these guys to take them to Kramer's mansion so that he can kind of see if there's any hints of where he is. So Wally heads to the Kramer mansion, pretending to just be a guy who wants to talk to Kramer. But then he reveals himself as the Flash to Kramer's butler in order to get access to the mansion, which really freaks out Kramer. And Wally pretends to disappear, but what he actually does is he whips up a little windstorm to camouflage him, so that when Kramer's butler runs back into the mansion in a panic to contact Kramer, Wally slips into the mansion without him seeing him and listens in on Kramer's conversation and learns of Kramer's location and that he stashed himself in a penthouse suite back in the city. He's right under our noses. So we find Kramer. He's got a couple of friends. There's a woman, 2 guys, and Wally shows up in order to take him in. He's like, hey, you owe a lot of money to the government, so, you're coming with me. And Kramer's just like, you idiot, you came here all on your own? We're not just regular people. We got superpowers. And so this woman reveals herself to be Pyranus. She has, the ability to turn into a fire demon, and so she tries to fight Wally, and he uses his speed powers to kind of fan her flames down a bit. And then Wally gets attacked by one of the other guys who calls himself Dr. Payne. He basically just has, diamond powers that he can shoot, diamonds out of his body, and his body's made out of diamonds. And he also fights this guy called P-Grunt, or Pagrunt, who is basically, this earth-based, or, dark-based dude. They're all based on different elements. He's, darkness, I guess. But he looks like a giant mummy. And so he grabs Wally, but Wally uses his super speed to, pull off this guy's bandages and wrap up Pyranus so that she can't do anything. But she tries to burn out of the bandages, and in doing so, she burns so hot that she just explodes and blows up the entire top of the building. So Wally and these guys all fall out of the building, and Wally uses his speed to stop them from hitting the ground. And so he's forced to fight Kramer himself, who has a demonic form. And that's when Kramer reveals that he is actually a demon from another dimension who created these elemental demons and then gave them mortal forms so that they could help him crash the stock market. That's literally who this guy is. He's a demon. He has no name. He's just a demon. And he just created these elemental guys, turn them into humans to help him crash the stock market. So they have a massive fight in the city, and he realizes that he can't beat Wally, and he also can't even reach him because Wally's just too fast. And he's like, and you won't give up? And Wally's like, nope, I promise to collect these taxes. And so Kramer's just like, very well, the taxes are in the bank book in my Swiss bank, Have them take the taxes from there. And he just gives in. And Wally's just like, thanks. And the mayor's just like, hey, I'm the mayor of this city. The city is in ruins no matter what this man has done. You can't just let him. And Wally's just like, sure I can. I'm with the government. We can do anything. And the mayor's just like, the Internal Revenue Service? Right. Send them the bill. And that's it. That's the end of the issue. The whole city has been destroyed, and Wally's just like, and I'm not going to help you fix it because I'm with the IRS, so just send them the bill and they'll cover it. And that's where the issue ends. And I will say, this issue was definitely better than the last one purely because of its ludicrous nature. The fact that, like, it's just Wally dealing with a fucking demon who just wants to crash the stock market, so creates a bunch of elemental demons. Like, how can you not just enjoy that? And the fact that he just gives up, he's just like, yeah, I'll pay the taxes, whatever. You know, it's better than, like, he's just like, it's much easier for me to pay the taxes and then, like, find a loophole in the legal system than it is to fight you. Like, that's why he decides to just give himself in. But the next issue that we're doing, issue 53, is a Superman issue. So Wally and Superman are going to race each other in the next issue. So definitely looking forward to that. It's pretty much like a regular thing for the Flash and Superman to race each other every now and then. Alright, so the next issue we're going to be talking about is issue 53, guest starring Superman, written by William Mesner-Loebs, with art by Gorilla Grodd and Jose Marzan. I thought that this issue was going to be a race for Superman, but it's actually it's a different kind of race. It's a race against time, with Jimmy Olsen's life at stake. So, the issue begins with Wally and Pied Piper doing what they normally do, just chilling on top of a bridge. This is like the third issue where we started this way. I guess it's just their routine. And the conversation quickly turns to them talking about the Joker again, because William Mesner-Loebs loves talking about the Joker. And then it swerves towards talking about, like, whether or not the Joker's gay. And Wally's like, oh yeah, you can normally tell when, like, people are gay. And, like, just look at the Joker. Like, he totally seems like a gay guy. And Piper's just like, the Joker's a psychopath. Like, he has no feelings whatsoever. Like, he's definitely not gay. And then Wally's just like, I don't even think there are any supervillains that are gay. Like, do you know any supervillains that are gay? And Piper's just like, well, you know, except me, of course. And Pied Piper comes out as being gay. Which is great if they hadn't have, like, been talking about, you know, a murderous psychopath being gay, like, 5 seconds ago. But yeah, Pied Piper's gay. This is officially the issue where he comes out. And, he's like, it doesn't bother you, right? And Wally's just like, me? Oh, gosh, no. Whoops, look at the time. Got an appointment, Piper. Gotta run. Right, glad it didn't bother you. And so Wally runs off, and he's like, idiot, idiot, idiot. How could I not have noticed? He's like, oh, I just had to get out of there. I really did have, something to do. I was busy. And it turns out Wally's got to go meet Superman, Clark Kent. Superman called him because Jimmy Olsen has gone missing. He's been kidnapped by a villain known as the Silver Squid. And the reason why he's been kidnapped by the Silver Squid is because he was investigating the Silver Squid. Because Jimmy Olsen recently got fired from the Daily Planet. You probably have to read Superman comics to know why. I'm not, so I don't know. And so he decided to start going after the Silver Squid in order to, like, try and take down robbers. And the Silver Squid found him and knocked him out and then took him hostage. And obviously, Jimmy Olsen called Superman on his, little, watch that called Superman. Superman came, and the Silver Squid was too powerful for Superman. Like, he was able to zap him. And he said that, you got 24 hours to bring me Esqueleto or I kill Wally. And Wally's just... Oh, I kill, not Wally, Jimmy. And so Wally's like, who's Esqueleto? And Esqueleto is a ex-president or ex-dictator of San Felipe. And he's apparently been dead for 2 years. But they discover that he's not actually dead. He's just being kept in a prison in San Felipe. That he turned himself into a prison there so that he would be safe from the Silver Squid, because he knows that the Silver Squid is coming after to kill him. And so Wally heads to San Felipe in order to find the dictator. Meanwhile, Clark Kent goes investigating, and he discovers that the Silver Squid used to be a CIA agent who worked for the dictator. And he got sick of doing his dirty work, and he tried to get out, and Esqueleto killed his wife. Killed his wife and daughter, I think? It mentions... He tortured his wife and killed her. No daughter, just his wife. While Wally's going to San Felipe, he actually has to, like, dodge a bunch of mines and, like, electric nets and sharks and barbed wire and stuff. And eventually he finds him, and the dictator's just like, you know, I'm just gonna stay here, and I'd rather not deal with this Silver Squid guy. And Wally's like, okay, I respect your wishes. But he doesn't. He just grabs the dictator and decides to take him away. He speeds off with him, and so Clark and Wally meet up with the Silver Squid, who is holding Jimmy hostage. Wally hands him the dictator and, like, Esqueleto, and Silver Squid is like, yeah, alright, yeah, yes, I can finally get my revenge. I'm gonna kill you now. And he uses, like, his electric powers on the dictator, but it turns out that it wasn't actually the dictator, it was Wally in disguise. And that the Flash that is there is not actually Wally, it's somebody wearing the Flash costume. So Wally distracted Silver Squid so that he would have time to free Jimmy. And then Superman deduced that that Silver Squid's powers are powered by amphetamines and steroids, and that he will eventually burn out if he keeps using his powers. So he forces Silver Squid to use his powers until he burns out, which he does. He ends up burning out. And Wally reveals that the person wearing the Flash costume, who was pretending to be the Flash, was the Pied Piper. And so they're kind of like, where did you leave? Like, where's the dictator? Like, where's Esqueleto? And Wally's just like, I left him downtown. You know, I don't think he'll be hard to find. Meanwhile, Esqueleto's like, I'm telling you, I'm a very important man. Take me to the CIA. Heads will roll. And then that's the end of the issue. That's where it ends. Jimmy's safe. Superman and Wally go their separate ways. And Pied Piper goes with Wally. And that's it. It's pretty straightforward issue. Pretty... I'd say it's a fun team up with Superman, but, like, I was expecting some kind of, like, I think I disappointed myself because I thought it was going to be a race, because the Flash and Superman tend to do races every now and then. It was a different kind of race. But, like, it's very easy to forget that Superman's even there, because it's a Flash comic. Wally does have to be the main character, so Superman kind of just did investigating in the background while Wally did most of the action. But it's not bad. It was pretty good. I enjoyed it. Alright, we're up to the final issue of this episode, issue 54. Nobody Dies. Written by Willie Mantelobes, with art by Gorilla Grodd and Jose Marzan. This is a good one. This one's real good. A lot of people love this one. I feel like I've heard about this one before. People say that this is one of William Mantelobes' best stories. And it is. It is one of his best issues. So, as we know, Wally is working with the IRS and the FBI. He's been stationed with a group of FBI members specifically, and he's currently dealing with someone who is holding somebody else hostage, and this guy is a member of a radical metahuman terrorist group called Altered Strain. Now, basically, Altered Strain are a group of guys who were tested for metahuman powers by the Dominators back during the invasion, but they never showed any powers, and so they took the extreme way of trying to get their powers by forcing the government to allow them to experiment and allow their powers to come forth. And because the government refused, they've turned into a terrorist group and are now holding people hostage and stuff. And so Wally and this FBI group have gone investigating, and it's led to this situation where this guy is now, who is a member of this group, is now holding this guy hostage. So Wally needs to stop the guy. And he says, you know, because he's got super speed, nobody dies. That's Wally's catchphrase. That's Wally's sentiment right now, is that nobody dies. Ever. So, this guy has scattered a bunch of mini mines around him while he holds this dude hostage. So, Wally uses his speed to dodge the mines. He turns off all the mines. And then he takes all the bullets out of this guy's gun at super speed. So, when the dude tries to shoot him, there's no bullets. So, he uses the gas grenade against Wally, which Wally didn't see coming. Then shoves his hostage out of the window. And is basically like, you can only catch one of us, me or him. Wally's like, hey, like I said, nobody dies. I can catch you both. And so he jumps out a window to grab the hostage, which he does. He grabs him, speeds his way up the building and back in, and has just enough time to knock the terrorist out and save everyone. So after that, the FBI and Wally head onto a plane in order to head back to, home base and pick up a new mission. And while Wally is on there, he meets a flight attendant whose name is Julie Myers. And she wants to be a stand-up comedian. She's telling him jokes. He's finding it funny. Wally orders some dinner, like some food to eat on the plane, and decides that he needs to go to the toilet. So as he heads off to go to the toilet, he bumps into a couple of people who turn out to be terrorists. Assumingly members of the same team. They don't say that, but I think we're supposed to assume that they're members of this team that is, holding people hostage and stuff. Connected to the other guy. They hold the plane hostage. They know Wally is the Flash. So they know Wally, the Flash is in the toilet. So one of them is like, I'm just going to kill the Flash right now. And so he decides to shoot up the entire toilet by blasting the hell out of it. But obviously, Wally is the Flash, so, he just dodged the bullets. So he comes out of the toilet and is like, I'm gonna beat the crap out of all of you because nobody dies. And he, beats this dude up and starts fighting the other guys. And one of the members of this group, this woman, she doesn't have a name, she has a gun, so she shoots straight up into the roof of the plane. And, Julie is obviously like, it's pressurized. Don't do that. It's a terrible idea. And Wally takes the gun from her, but it's too late. The top of the plane explodes and, a massive hole rips through it. And Julie gets sucked through the hole. And Wally's like, she's dead. There's no way she's alive. She's definitely dead. There's no way I can save her. I'm about to make the worst decision of my life. And he jumps out of the plane. He's like, I'm so stupid. Why am I doing this? There's no way she's alive. But, I gotta do it anyway because I can't stand the idea of her being dead. Nobody dies on my watch. So he starts falling out of the plane looking for Julie. He can't see her, but eventually he does find her falling. And he tries to catch her, but he ends up going past her. So he starts kicking his legs, trying to stop himself from falling, which he manages to do. And he grabs Julie by the arm and pulls her in close. But he's running out of energy because he hasn't eaten anything in a while. And you can hear that Julie is talking, which is surprising to him because he'd think that Julie would be shocked, would be in shock right now. They're plummeting towards Earth at the moment. Wally can't see any water, so he's got to try and, slow them down so that they don't go splat on the pavement. Julie reveals that she's got some peanuts, some plain peanuts. So she gives it to Wally, and that gives him enough energy to try and divert their fall. And because there's no water, he decides to head straight for the trees. So he finds a tree, he heads into it. They get a bit cut up and stuff from the fall of the tree, and they both land on the ground. And neither of them are hurt. Wally's okay, Julie's okay. And Wally's thankful because it's a rule. Nobody dies. And that's the end of the issue. Really good issue. I love it. I love how it kind of starts with Wally being like, nobody dies. And then at the end of the issue, you're left wondering, is Julie gonna die? While I was reading it, I was kind of on the edge of my seat because I was like, are they gonna do a situation where Wally doesn't save this person? And the twist is that he does save them, because you're expecting that he's going to fail, because he says that nobody dies. So obviously you would think, then someone's going to die. But No, the real twist is that he sticks to his word and nobody dies. It's pretty great. If you want to read a Flash issue, like, this would be another issue of the Flash that I would give someone to just read out of context, because you don't really need to have been reading every single issue up until now to read this one. It's definitely like a self-contained story. It's worth checking out. So if you're interested in just checking out a random issue of the Flash, read this one. It's real good. But that's gonna be it for this issue. For this episode of Flash Forward. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed the episode. I enjoyed all of these issues. We had a lot of good stories this time. And next week, we are going to be starting Armageddon 2001, which was an event that DC did in the early 90s. And then after we finish that, which that's going to take a couple of weeks, we are going to do War of the Gods. I'm not going to talk about Armageddon right now. I'll explain what it's about. Like, I'll give it a little summary of it when we start it next week, a little bit of an introduction. But yeah, we'll save that for next week. I'm KJ Mullen. This has been Flash Forward. If you enjoy the podcast, please rate it. If you can, give it a good rating if you like it. And follow the podcast as well, because, the more people follow it, the more people will hopefully see it and listen to it. I want to get as many people listening to this as possible, so share it around if you can. It would mean a lot to me. I really enjoy doing this. I want to keep doing this. I don't plan on stopping anytime in the future, even though I don't have a lot of people listening to it right now. I think my passion for comic books and for the Flash and for reading these events and explaining it to people is enough for it to keep me going, but hopefully I can get more people listening and you can help, If you know anyone who's interested in comic books, interested in learning about interested in the Flash, interested in, learning about events, the DC events and stuff in general, tell them about this podcast. And, yeah, I hope you have a good day, and I'll see you next week. Have a good one.